Alright, so now we have our rims, and they're full 10-inch width there. Handle those big meaty slicks. I got a rack and pinion steering set up. It makes the steering a whole lot more graceful than it does your typical go-kart, which just has a L bracket that goes this way and that way. And let's see, I got some new set of header gaskets. I've got this here. This is a universal instrument cluster that you can use to put on a motorcycle or whatever. And you know, it has all your functions, speed, tachometer, and all that. Right now we've got our frame over here on our little homemade rotisserie, and right now I'm working on the axle sliders so that we can you know, tighten the chain. And here's one that's partially built there, and I got one that's all the way built, and you can see how it can slide. The whole axle assembly can slide back and forth, and of course I'll be able to demonstrate that better once I get it in the cart. Alrighty then, so I've got my slider assembly in place. You know, all the Gixxer carts I've seen online, they are either a fixed rear axle, period, with no method of tightening the chain that I could see anyway, or they have a idler on the slack side of the chain. Well, of course, having no method of tensioning the chain is not good, because, you know, the chain's going to stretch, and then every time it loosens up you need to replace the chain. But plus, with a loose chain, when you let off going into a corner, it really makes things unstable. You just have to feel it to know what I'm talking about. And you know, I'm just not comfortable with that. I think I can do better. And the using a tensioner, I've seen that happen, or I've seen that done, and even tried it myself on the original iteration of this go-kart, and it just didn't work because I mean, I don't know, unless you use a 1-inch grade 8 bolt to hold that tensioner in place, when you let off, all that force just knocks that tensioner down and loosens it up. So I've just not had much luck with it. I just think that a slider assembly is so much better at the cost of a little weight, but with as much motor as this thing's got on it, I think, you know, a little weight is probably going to do it some good. I got the tires mounted on those big old 10-inch rims. To give you an idea, that's my whole hand right there. So they are nice and wide. So now we got our front tires mounted on here, and we're now going to work on fitting our rack and pinion in here, because that little thing that was just the bar that sticks up and you go right and left, and you got about maybe less than half a turn of wheel travel. I think I prefer a little, you know, a little more drivability there. So you can pick these rack and pinion kits up online real reasonable. Our next step is going to be to go ahead and fabricate the roll cage, which, aside from the obvious safety, is also going to be how we're going to mount the fuel tank, oil cooler, and then the exhaust is going to come up and come out around here somewhere. I haven't figured that out yet. But as you can see, I've got my chain kind of test fit. I don't have any of the keys in the shafts or anything. I just want to line everything up and see how it's going to look. And that's with the adjuster pretty much all the way forward, so we can allow for plenty of chain stretch there. Alright, now that we have the gas tank mounted, next step is to mount the oil cooler. Alright, so now that's with the fuel tank and the oil cooler mounted. Of course, now, like I said, everything's pretty much mostly tack welded into place. Once I know everything's good, then we'll tear it all back apart and finish weld everything. I wanted to get a nice seat with good bolsters in it, and one also that I could use for the harness. So it needs the little holes to go there across the top and offer good, neck support there. So I just bit the bullet and went ahead and ordered one online, and unfortunately the only one I could find that I liked had to buy the pair of them, so I got another one over here, but I'll donate that to my son's cart. And it's going to be in a relatively close proximity to the exhaust header, so we're going to have to build a firewall. So basically what we need is some sort of heat shield to go between the exhaust header and where the back of the seat's going to go, which is going to be in pretty close proximity. So I came up with a cool idea, and I made this out of some sheet aluminum, and it solves a couple of problems for me. Number one, of course, it's going to protect that seat from getting all burned up, and then I was able to get it to where it will attach right there, the existing cradle mount. And the other thing is this piece that comes across the top here will secure down to that little cover there. But it also gives me a place to mount my ignition coils. So I'll put another piece of sheet metal underneath there, and what that's going to do is, as you're running down the track, it's going to scoop air from underneath the cart and pull it up through here and exhaust it through the top. And what that will do is that'll help cool the front of the engine, which normally wouldn't have any air because it'd be blocked by the seat. I made a slight design change to the heat shield, put an extra bend in it at the top. That lets me mount my seat about 4 inches further back, giving me a little more leg room up here. So that's all situated now. I've got my seat bolted in. Okie dokie. So the engineering challenge du jour is setting up the hydraulic brake system. Not a whole lot of room to work with up in the front of the cart here, so really had to kind of go outside the box and come up with something that'll work. So let's show you what I came up with. So basically, you have the accelerator pedal and the brake pedal here, and then we have to get over to the master cylinder. So again, as I said, it's really tight in here, and then of course I have the rack and pinion and the steering rack in here as well. So it's frankly a miracle that this idea is working. But so what we've done basically is welded a mounting bracket in there, and bolted the master cylinder in, and then this is the push rod for the master cylinder, and it just kind of wraps right around that rack real nice and pretty. And then I'm making the push rod here now. I've got a nice strong metric bolt here that fits the clevis that came off of the donor motorcycle. Okay, now I'd say on the MacGyver scale, this 1 to 10, this is a high 9 for sure. So we're clear of the steering rack, and our master cylinder working great there. And of course it's good and sturdy, very well, you know, assembled here, nothing hinky. So once we got all the pedals on and in place, and I went ahead and put the steering column in where it'll hold the steering wheel, and of course that comes through right there. I took it off so I could weld on the mounting plate for the instrument cluster, which I'll kind of mock this up a little bit and let you see it here. You can see the gauge through the top of the steering wheel, but you're not going to be paying too much attention to that, but the GoPro will catch it, so we know how fast we're going. Once we get everything in place and where it needs to be, then we're going to sandblast the frame and paint it, and we'll make it all look pretty. So, but for now, we have to get everything built and functional. So, and one big part of that is going to be the clutch cable. So, as you can see, the motor's all the way back there, and the clutch pedal's all the way up here. So, now I suppose if you know exactly what ends you need and everything, there's places online that can make the cable for you. Or, in my case, since we're going to have to make two, because I'm sure my son's going to need to make one when he builds his kart, you can buy the materials. Unfortunately, it only comes in bulk, so you have to buy 50 feet of it. But that's your 2.5 millimeter center wire. And then that's the outer casing. And then I've got mine already measured out and done up here. So once you do that, then you got to get the little, you know, collars that go on the end. And if you don't have a, you know, a proper crimp tool for putting these things on, one of these universal coax crimpers works great. I just used the smallest size there, and you can see it crimped it on there right nice, so that's all good. And then I just cut this stuff with a hacksaw to the length you need, and now I've got enough cable to come from the back, and we'll come up to we'll weld a piece in here to mount the other end, and then it'll string off to the clutch pedal there, and that'll be our clutch.